This is OFN NFL Preview on the Our Football Network for Week 4 in the NFL. Welcome in Mark Lawrence from Playbook.com. Mark, we have just a few hours to go before October, and then it's not only the second month of the season, but once we're through with Week 4, a quarter. What is it? Yeah, a quarter of the season will be over. That's fast.
Yeah, it sure is. We'll be at the quarter pole, like they say in horse racing, here this weekend when the National Football League is over, and looking forward to reaching that into the final finish line, hopefully with an unaltered race. We're hoping that COVID doesn't rear its ugly head and lets the NFL play its full season to conclusion.
Yeah, we'll see how everything goes with the Pittsburgh-Tennessee game. And I was actually surprised when the line came out and Pittsburgh was a 1-point favorite. It harkens back to when we talked in the preseason of the disrespect that Tennessee was getting as a Super Bowl team, 33-1, whatever they were. And sure enough, they just win. Still, underdog at home, even though Pittsburgh's 3-0. It's not like Pittsburgh has looked all that impressive and beaten anybody. So I guess in a way I'm surprised, but in a way, I guess we should have expected them to be the dog. I'm not sure that would have stayed the case or will stay the case. I mean, how do you think that line is? What do you think it's going to happen now? Well, first of all, I'll tell you what. Let me ask the first question. Let's just say they played no COVID issues on Sunday. Do you think Pittsburgh would have stayed the favorite?
I believe they would have. They have there's a very popular following for Pittsburgh, especially when they're healthy and Ben Roethlisberger is playing. And because they're cashing tickets as well, nobody's going to jump off that Pittsburgh bandwagon. Tennessee never looks comfortable in games, and they win games kind of like down to the wire, the cardiac titans, if you will, this football season. So it's hard to wrap your arms around them. So I think the combination of the two factors brought Pittsburgh favored in the football game, and had not the COVID issue popped up, I think Pittsburgh still would have gone off the favorite.
And what do you think is going to happen now if this game does take place on Monday or Tuesday?
Well, a lot of that, Greg, is going to be dependent upon what the COVID issues are on the Tennessee football team. What players are they impacting?
Right now, it's not anybody major.
Well, that's good, but that's also just given the fact that it's there, it could end up eventually affecting some major players, and that's what they have to wait and see to do these daily testings with to find out. But if the regular lineup, the regular starters are going to play, I'm going to make a case for Tennessee in the football game. Just this lack of disrespect card that they're playing here right now, and we
That's
also outlined in our newsletter this week how well 3-0 teams do in the National Football League when they're at home in Game 4. And we'll hit on a few of those games on the show today.
And I can imagine, too, that I would guess an undefeated team as a home dog, that's got to be a good number, shouldn't it be?
Well, it's good, and it's also going to apply to another team this week, the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Undefeated home dog, 3-0 this football season here as well. So, it's my belief that if you were to back Tennessee as a home dog and you were to back Chicago as a home dog, you'd have a better chance of cashing both of those tickets than you would losing both of those tickets.
Okay.
That's my philosophy.
Let's start with the big game of the week, New England and Kansas City. This one will be a late one on Sunday. And first, kind of look back at the Chiefs. We went over all the trends. You talked about everything that worked or should have worked and did end up working for the Chiefs, going in as a dog and all of that, and Andy Reid and so forth, and that worked out. But let's just talk just game and consequences. And this is the other thing we talked about, that if Baltimore didn't win this game, that it was going to really hamper their efforts to beat Kansas City in the postseason when they haven't proven they can beat them yet. And now I am 100% positive that if these two teams play again in the postseason, that Kansas City is going to win the game. The other thing is Mark Roman. I'm sorry, but sooner or later, I think the fans in Baltimore are going to get sick of him. Now, they might like the fact that he's got Lamar Jackson working this offense and such, but he abandoned the run too early in the postseason last year and he lost. and he went ahead and did nothing in the running department in this game against Kansas City. It was like Kansas City scores, 3-0, and that's enough. I'm just going to throw the ball. It's like nobody ran the ball. I mean, you cannot put the onus on Lamar Jackson to throw the football. When are they going to learn? And maybe it's going to take years, but they better learn fast. And I get it. They've got hopes for Lamar Jackson, but the guy is an athlete. He's a tremendous athlete. He can throw the ball a little bit, especially, in underneath routes. Once in a while, he can hit somebody deep, but he's not a pocket passer. He's not a great passer. And I don't understand this philosophy of all right, let's let Lamar Jackson try to win the game passing the football when that's not what he does best.
Well, 6 words come to my mind when you mention Lamar Jackson and pocket passer. Never has been, never will be.
Yeah.
It's not his game, okay?
No.
And unfortunately, when they fell behind against Kansas City, it did not give them an opportunity to set up a running game. So hence the ball was back in Lamar Jackson's hands once again, where they won it. We'll be honest about that. But it didn't work out to their favor, and the better team ended up winning the football game.
Sure.
My concern with Baltimore is that they seem to trounce and trample beatable football teams.
Yeah, the bad teams, yeah.
That's right. When it comes time to step up, what we call step-up games,
yep,
they tend to wilt.
Yep.
Like a flower out in the sun in the desert. So they're going to have to do just that. They're going to have to learn to beat winning teams to be talked about being amongst the upper echelon teams in the National Football League. We already know Kansas City is one of those teams.
Sure.
And that win stamped them as the number 1 ranked team in the National Football League this year. So we'll see.
We want Baltimore as a dog, too. We don't want Baltimore in a big game as the favorite. We just don't.
No, because, again, when you're stepping up and you're favored to do so, that complicates matters. That puts added weight and pressure on a team. When you do it in an underdog role, okay, then you wake a team up. It's the Rodney Dangerfield concept. Me, the underdog, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Let me show you why you're wrong. That type of an approach to a football game. So it largely depends upon the opponent, and it largely depends upon, obviously, the condition and how they're playing at the time of the game. But there are roles that we'll like Baltimore in, and there are certainly roles we'll be liking Baltimore against this football season.
Yeah, and we're not going to talk too much about the Baltimore game because of the competition that they're playing this week. But, I mean, and at this point in time, when Baltimore's on the road, you take Baltimore because Lamar Jackson is 10-1-1 against the spread on the road in his career. I know it's a big spread, but, they could score instantaneously, again, just running the football, trying to run the football out, even late. Boom, touchdown. You've got a two touchdown lead if you need it as far as the point spread is concerned. I'm not saying I'm going to take the game. I don't like taking double-digit point spreads. But, yeah, the point is when Lamar Jackson's on the road, they do pretty well.
They do. And, put him on the road where the price isn't as prohibitive. He becomes a little bit more bettable in that sense.
Yes, but this one's a 13-point spread. This is a little different.
Yeah, it is. It's the Beltway Highway series here, where they're only down the road a bit, so not really much of a road game. But the bottom line is they're still laying doubles at Washington, and I certainly couldn't lay Baltimore laying doubles right now after coming off that big Kansas City game. One, there's going to be a natural letdown in order, and two, the question is, can they get back up off the mat in time to cover?
I agree.
Football game by double digits.
Yeah, because even though they lost, some people might say, they'll be motivated to win. No, I think the opposite, because I think psychologically they understood how important that game was. Now they're going to face a team that they feel like they can beat asleep. And where's the motivation going to come from? It may take them a week, maybe 2 weeks before they snap out of it.
Maybe,
yeah. But as far as Kansas City is concerned, now they're the home situation, coming off a Monday night game, taking on Bill Belichick as a touchdown favorite. So Belichick is the dog in this spot, getting 7. I love the revenge line, and you can get that right here in Playbook Magazine, right here. Books A Million, Barnes & Nobles, Playbook.com. This is one of the better trends of the week when you can get a number like this over 14 games. 13-1 against the spread in the last 14 with revenge versus opponents with a winning percentage of 40%. 50% or greater. That, of course, is Kansas City, and also that team being in the AFC. So 13-1, that is a huge number. They've also, if you think about it too, the Patriots had one outright, three coming into the season, three road dog games since I think 2015. So they were 3-0 straight up and against the spread as a road dog since 2015. They play Seattle a couple weeks ago, road dog. They lose, but look at how they lost. They lost on the last play of the game with the ball right there at the goal line. So right. I love the fact that the Patriots are getting 7. I love the fact that the Chiefs are coming off a game they circled. They beat the Patriots last year. You know, the Baltimore game was more important to the Chiefs than the Patriot game. Cam Newton waiting. If this is such a big game for him, he had his game a couple weeks ago. He's a prideful superstar. He wants to show everybody that, hey, I can win these games. And the Patriots can run the football, keep the ball away from Patrick Mahomes. That'll help out strategy-wise as well. I'm not saying this is a guaranteed Patriot win, but I do like the 7 points.
I can completely understand why, okay? And I can add to that Bill Belichick stuff and make it real simple and just tell you that in non-division games when he's an underdog and he has revenge, he's 11-1 to the number.
Okay.
Really good numbers there. Kansas City, after playing Baltimore, 0-8 to the spread the following game. Yeah, and that's coming off of a Monday night football game.
Yes.
But there's always two sides to every case. And in this side, for Kansas City, they happen to be one of these teams that we wrote an article about in this week's Playbook newsletter about 4-0 or 3-0 teams at home in week number 4, and they are fantastic. It's real difficult to step in front of teams in this particular role. So in doing that, what do? I turn to my coach's database, which is what I do first and foremost anyway, because when I've got a matchup of two celebrated coaches like these two, there's going to be a lot of numbers behind them. And I found that 10 times Andy Reid has gone up against Bill Belichick in their career. Bill Belichick has won 7 of those football games, covered the number in 6 times. But the interesting aspect is, in those games, the underdog is 8-2 against the spread in the Belichick-Reid matchups.
And I would guess that Reid was the dog in most of those games.
Well, probably the majority of the time.
Majority, maybe not most, maybe 7 out of 10, maybe.
Yeah, right. So, but anyway, it did work out well that way. What you've got is Andy Reid at home off a Monday Night Football game. He's been terrific. Okay, he's 13-5 to the number, straight up and against the spread. 6-0 the last 6 straight up and against the spread. Reid at home off a Monday Night Football game. So now you've got this big revenge chip for New England, who's outstanding with revenge, as we just talked about. And you've got the Kansas City 4-0 or 3-0 at home in Game 4 situation scenario here, which is really difficult to have to back. To me, I'm going to pull up my seat of my lazy boy recliner and watch the football. And
I hear you.
Because I can make cases for both sides, and I can make convincing cases for both sides. But going to the window, I'm not going to feel comfortable about either wager that I would make, because I know that there are bullets coming from the other side. So I think this is a great football game to watch and a tough one to bet.
Yeah, I might just because I like taking dogs to win on the money line when they're really good football teams. Because, I could sit there and feel good about a 7-point spread, and that's a big number. And if it's the fourth quarter, like the Seattle game, and the Patriots can't win it, hey, I got the cover. But you are getting plus 250. It's a big line and the money line for the Patriots. And I usually just like taking those chances with those teams and saying, you know what, I'm just going to, and again, every circumstance is different, but this might be one of those circumstances. By the way, I'm going to be interested to find out when you track your numbers, do you wait until the end of the season to take a look at everything, or can it be simple as going, okay, now that we're through the first 4 weeks of the season, I just want to take a look back at the first 4 weeks and see if I notice any significant changes. And I bring that up because you mentioned things like being at home, and it's sort of like the Baltimore situation last week. See, I think that game's different if there's, 70,000 screaming Baltimore Raven fans in their first Monday night home game in 10 years. I just think it's a different game. Who knows? Kansas City probably still wins, but I'm just saying it's a different atmosphere. And I just wonder whether or not if you will be able to look back early enough and say, you know what, it's a COVID year, there's nobody in the stands. Let's see if these home or away trends are actually working the same as normal.
Well, that's really an interesting observation, and there's always an erosion or a return to the norm as far as trending goes. What we have to do as handicappers is we have to find out what the reasons are for that returning back to the norm or going back the other way. Are they injury related?
Mm-hmm.
Are they schedule related? Has there been a player personnel turnover on a football team that is attributing to all of that stuff? So a lot of it goes into the mix. But I do know this, that when that push comes to shove, when I'm looking at trends, the first thing I'm looking at are the coaches, because coaches tend to keep their numbers where they were. It's their tendency, and their players adopt that personality. So coaches first, and then evaluation second.
Yeah, that's why I'm actually, and again, whether I'm able to come up with enough data myself just from memory. Oh yeah, remember this, and I'm kind of staying away a little bit from the. All right, well, they've got this home situation. I mean, like the Raider game, that's different. Monday night, they got to travel to the East Coast. That was more of that scenario as opposed to, the Raiders have got to go to New England and face the rowdy Patriot fans. I couldn't have cared less, as you saw in the game, because the Patriots were one of my top picks last week and they covered easy. I couldn't have cared less if there were fans in the stands, because that was all about Monday, short week, traveling east after a 2-0 start, playing a good team. And they were banged up and injured. So that's different as opposed to, this is a situation where this team might benefit more by having their true home crowd behind them. And that's something that I think is important, in my opinion, for fans to keep an eye on this year.
Well, those true home crowds, Kansas City is amongst the best in the National Football League. So
yes,
that built-in advantage isn't there this football season for the Chiefs. They're going to have to get it done strictly on their ability and performance on the field.
And by the way, they actually had the loudest stadium the first game of the season. I haven't heard a stadium that loud yet since, and they only had 15,000, I believe. I don't know if they're upping it for the game on Sunday.
Well, they had 15,000 plus some heavy piped-in fan support from games past, where you couldn't hear yourself. The opposing team would always complain that they couldn't hear the signal. You couldn't talk in the huddle. So they just probably ramped everything up to that level, and it made the fans or the opposing teams feel like, hey, we're in Kansas City. We're back where we know it's loud.
All right, Seattle, speaking of undefeated teams, Seattle 3-0, straight up and against the spread, and they are at Miami. And this is one of those games that you just wonder whether or not you got the dreaded four-lettered word for favorites, trap, because Seattle's coming off these big games at home. They got to travel all the way to the farthest stretches of the country that they're ever going to travel to, and to take on a losing team, a 1-2 team, and they're they are a touchdown favorite. So there's a lot there to say. And Miami's coming off their first win, and they looked a lot better. Fitzpatrick, you got the good Ryan Fitzpatrick. And when Parker's healthy, they're a much more dangerous offense. But we have also chronicled how good Russell Wilson is in East Coast time zone games, and they continued that trend by beating Atlanta week 1.
They did, and that's the reason Russell Wilson's off to his great start. That catapulted him to where they are right now. He's the leader in the clubhouse for the MVP right now, and deservedly so. But everything that I do, I'm looking deep inside at statistical performance of teams. And if I put tape over this game, I would make Miami the favorite in this football game, largely because you've got a Seattle football team that ranks dead last in defense, allows 498 yards a game.
Yep.
They've outgained in every one of their 3 wins this football season here. And this harkens back to our conversation last week. You cannot ask a quarterback and a team to continually just go out and overwhelm and outscore a team, you have to play defense at some point of a football season. In Miami, they've got a quarterback right now that they're enamored with in Ryan Fitzpatrick, because when he plays, he plays really well in stretches. He's really, really good, or he's really, really bad. And right now he's in one of these really, really good stretches here right now. And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Miami take Seattle down in this football game. We've still got humidity down here in Miami. You know, the dreaded September humidity. We're only 1 week removed from that. Will be on Sunday, and it's still humid down here. It's an early start. Those factors are not going to benefit Seattle at all in this football game. You've also got Miami will not be intimidated in the game. They beat Seattle 5 of the last 7 times they played. They won the money 6 of those 7 football games. So they know, taking the field here, that they can go toe-to-toe with this football team. I don't think they're going to be intimidated at all. And because Ryan Fitzpatrick is one of those, what you would call an up mode, whether it's astrologically or whatever it is that helps him to do those things, he's in that right now. And I think Miami's a live dog on the football card this Saturday Sunday for all the reasons I just laid out.
Yeah, I think this is one of those where I would feel a lot safer taking the points because of Russell Wilson. You can see him; they could be sluggish early, and then Russell Wilson will do his magic late, and they'll escape by a shred of a football, and we could see that happening. There were plus 250 money line for Miami. But yeah, this is definitely a trap game, no question about it, for Seattle. And Carson looks like he's not going to play, and that's a big loss for them in the backfield. And if they got to throw the ball all day long, they've had a lot of success with that. But sooner or later, when you throw the ball as much as you do, that does come back to haunt you at times. Because if you're just throwing and throwing and throwing, you know, it's just whether penalties on the offensive line or drop passes, whatever, that stall drives, and then combined with a bad defense that's struggling with injuries. Jamal Adams, not sure if he's going to play. I don't know if he's been ruled out yet. So, yeah, it's looking like one of those situations where you feel a lot more confident that the dog can actually be up for the game compared to feeling confident that Seattle's just going to come marching in there, throwing the ball all over the place like we've seen the last 2 weeks with no problems.
And we're not talking about a dog like the New York Jets or the New York Giants, okay?
Yeah.
We're talking about a football team that feels good about itself.
Yes.
And deservedly so. I mean, you know, they could have laid down and died last year, but they didn't. You know, they picked themselves back up off the mat. They closed out well, and they're playing very competitive football here again this year. And a lot of that goes to the head coaching with the football team. So confidence is reigning on the Miami side of this football game. And I think overconfidence would be the key word for Seattle coming into this game.
All right, let's move on to New Orleans and Detroit. And speaking of teams that got off the mat, the Lions with a much-needed win at Arizona. So they're now 1-2. But so are the Saints. The Saints lose the game to the Packers. And offensively, it's not the problem, even though people are criticizing Drew Brees. But the Saints' defense has been very disappointing. And the Saints' defense has been the reason the last couple of years that they have been as good as they have, because Breeze is always good, but the defense is what elevated the Saints to be a really good Super Bowl team the last couple of years. That's just not happening so far this year, and I think that makes them vulnerable.
Well, it's not happening, and I can draw a similar parallel to New Orleans and Seattle, where they're both defenseless this year. Seattle's winning because their offense is alive, and New Orleans is not. Michael Thomas being sidelined really hurts the New Orleans Saints. Alvin Kamara stepped up last week and had a big game, caught 13 passes, and he'll be a big factor, I think, in this contest here as well. And you look at quarterbacks and their tendencies. Drew Brees has been terrific against the NFC North. He's 14-5-1 to the spread in his career, 7-1-1 his last 9 games. And you're catching Detroit off of a win. So you got a good team off of a loss and a bad team off of a win. And you're putting the bad team on the road where the price isn't going to be as prohibitive. You can get a cheaper price, a wholesale price, if you will. I think this is a real nice spot for New Orleans coming in here into this game. And you've also got, some people might say, a little bit of a letdown after Green Bay. I wouldn't buy that because they lost.
Not at 1-2. No,
not at 1-2, and they lost. But the fact is, They're 9-0 the spread after Green Bay. So, that's not going to be a deterrent. It might end up being a help to this football team. And I do like the life that Detroit showed in their comeback win last week, but they're not catching the right opponent at the right time this particular week in New Orleans. You're catching a good team off of a loss who's in an angry mood. That's never a good recipe for success.
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm gonna roll the dice here with Detroit in this one, and I think the win against Arizona saved their season, maybe saved Matt Patricia's job. And so I'm going to give him one more week. I actually had Detroit in the postseason, and I didn't have the Saints. And so far, that for the Saints is looking okay. For Detroit, in order for them to potentially be a playoff team in a conference where they can make the playoffs, because it's not as tough as the AFC, they've got to win this football game. And what I like about them is if you take a look back at the last 2 seasons, when Matt Patricia's been coaching, the second home game for Detroit 2 years ago, upset New England. They were a 7.5-point dog in that game. Last year, should have beat Kansas City. That was a game that was all there for Detroit to take Kansas City. Second home game of the season, 7-point dog. They lose but cover. Right now, second home game, playing another really good quarterback, another really good program. So they know they can draw back to those experiences. They know they can win these types of games. And then, like I said, this is all about, this is it. You lose this game, and last week was just a win. It didn't really mean nothing. But you win this game this week, beat Arizona and New Orleans, and now all of a sudden Detroit's thinking, maybe we got something here. Especially considering Golladay didn't play the first few weeks of the season. He was banged up. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice one more week with Detroit.
Well, Golladay makes a big difference to that offense. He gives Matt Stafford a real legitimate home run hitter. And, he's been paying dividends the past 2 weeks. On the other side of the coin, this is a 1-2 New Orleans team who needs this game like a vampire. Okay, they can't afford to fall to 1-3 in a division where Tom Brady looking like the Bucks are off to a good running start here. So you're going to get, I think, New Orleans' best effort in this football game. Now, will it be enough? It remains to be seen. But I think Drew Brees has got something still in the tank. Maybe not as much as he had in the tank a year or 2 ago. But in situations like this is where you find Hall of Fame quarterbacks stepping up and delivering the goods. And I expect that from Drew Brees on Sunday.
Okay, Cleveland and Dallas. We'll find out if Cleveland is for real after getting blown out week 1 against a really good team and then beating a couple of weak teams. But they did get the job done. They won those games at home. They're now 2-1. Now they got to go to Dallas, and they're in that 1-2 situation as well. They could lose this game and still be okay because they're in the NFC East. But still, you don't want to go 1-3. We've just been through that with the last game. Dallas is a 4.5-point favorite. Interesting trends to find out here. Most of them actually say to go with Dallas, including a really good comparison here. If you look at Cleveland's history against the NFC East, they are just 2-17 straight up and 0-9 away over that time period. That's really bad. And this point spread's only about 4.5. But then just thinking about the points and winning the game, on the flip side, Dallas has won 6 straight up and against the spread versus AFC North teams. So the combination definitely says to go with Dallas in this one. And I could see that happening. I still don't know if I trust Cleveland to win a game like this, to go up 3-1 and say, hey, we're for real. So I need to see that first. And the Cowboys are still, I think, a much better team than the record shows. They just have some real big issues in the secondary. I'm not so sure Baker Mayfield could take advantage of that because Cleveland's strength right now is their running game.
Well, they are on a winning streak, as you mentioned here. To put it in proper perspective, they just beat the Sisters of the Poor. Cincinnati and Washington are their 2 wins, 1-5 combined on the season, and not likely to be a whole lot better win percentage-wise by the end of the football season. They're still going to be bad football teams. To Cleveland's advantage, they come in here knowing that it was 90 weeks, 90 weeks, the last time they had a winning record. So they're feeling probably pretty giddy about that right
Yep.
now. But they shouldn't get too giddy about that because they're catching a Dallas football team that's gotten off to a sluggish start. And much like New Orleans, they're a vampire this week as well. I don't like the job Mike McCarthy's done as far as play calling has gone this football season here. He's made some highly questionable calls. I think.
What else is new?
Yeah, what else is new is right. At least one of them which cost him a victory. He cannot continue to keep making those mistakes. Cleveland's best asset in this football game is the best ground game in the National Football League, and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. If they can continue to keep pounding the ball on the ground and keeping the other team offense on the sideline, it'll benefit the Cleveland Browns here. But Dallas is, you mentioned here how poorly Cleveland's fared against the NFC East. Dallas has chewed up the AFC North. They've won and covered the last 6 football games in a row doing just that. The problem with Dallas is they reside in the weakest neighborhood in the league. That's the NFC least this year, where these teams have really struggled. I think they have 2 combined wins, teams out of the NFC East. So that's not beneficial for Dallas by any way, shape, or form.
No,
but
they're 2-9-1.
2-9-1. Okay, the NFC East. There you go. So there's nothing to be fearful from the East that way this year. But you're also getting a very, very wholesale low price on the Dallas Cowboys in this football game because Cleveland just beat Cincinnati and Washington, and Dallas has struggled out of the gate to begin with. The beginning of the football season here, Dallas is a 7 or 8 point favorite in this contest. So the number's been adjusted accordingly. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is to hop on a Cleveland Brown bandwagon. It's my hometown team, and I'd love nothing more to see them do well. And I faded them almost all throughout the season last year because of the hype that they had to try to overcome, and they couldn't. And when they become popular once again this year, let them win this football game and time to jump off the merry-go-round, okay? Because, then all of a sudden they start reading the headlines in the newspapers and so forth and whatnot. I think there's value to Dallas in this football game here. And for the low number, I'm going to lay the points with the Cowboys.
Okay, let's get to the primetime games on Sunday night. You have Philly and San Francisco. And now there's a few trends. There are definitely some conflicting trends here. The Niners are a 7-point favorite. Let's just take a look at the game itself because the Niners, yes, they came off a win with a bunch of key players out, including the starting quarterback. Same thing's going to happen this week. But the Giants and the Eagles, as much as I'm not high on the Eagles, there's still a talent difference there. The Eagles are a more talented football team, and they're a banged-up receiving core, no question about it, Philly. But they still have Carson Wentz, and they still have some decent players, and they have some pride. This isn't a good week for Philly. Even though they tied the game, it was Cincinnati. Fans didn't like it. What else is new in Philly? Now they go away. Maybe that's a good thing for them. But here are some interesting trends. Because I know you have one that's going to be a big time for San Francisco or against Philly. But Doug Peterson has covered all 8 of his games as a dog versus a non-division opponent following a home game. So that's pretty nice. And on the flip side, San Francisco has covered just 1 out of the last 13 as a favorite versus losing teams. So a lot there. Those 2 right there say go with Philly, but there are some other big trends that say stay away from the Eagles.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with their poor start, especially last week when they couldn't dispose of Cincinnati at home and battle them to a tie. And the trend that we're talking about here is just that NFL teams who do play to a tie, an overtime tie, have been absolutely horrible when on the road the following week. After kissing their sister, taking to the road, these teams are 0-15 straight up and 3-12 to the spread, going back to 1988. Not a good roll for the Philadelphia Eagles this particular week. Now, I'm not enamored with San Francisco right now for a couple of reasons. Number one, you had the rally around the Nick Mullins situation last week where they did just that.
Yep.
And you'll oftentimes see that revert the other way at the very next start.
Well, we talked about that. Matter of fact, you referenced that several times last year.
Yes, exactly. And, that could well apply in this football game here. If it does, then you've got the Doug Peterson stuff to take a hold of and run with in this football game. I'm going to say this, that, had the Eagles not played to that tie, I'd be talking about making a case for the Eagles in this football game. San Francisco comes here back home off of back-to-back East Coast wins, and now comes home and lays points to a football team that's underachieved, and there's a lot of value with in this football contest. And the fact of the matter is San Francisco is still a beat-up football team.
Yep.
Not only did they rally around the loss of Jimmy Garoppolo last week, they rallied around the loss of a lot of players last week. So, can these second-string players step up and play 2 good consecutive games in a row? That's rather doubtful. And I think a coach like Doug Peterson could probably likely take care of a situation or advantage of something like that. But I can't fade teams that are in this off a tie on the road situation like the Eagles are. And use a quarterback like Carson Wentz, who ranks dead last in the National Football League in quarterback rating this year. You're going to see, if they don't win this football game here, you're going to be reading about the chant for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah,
they're real soon.
I mean, that's what they get.
Yep.
When they draft a guy like that early. I mean, with Love, even though that was also like, what? Aaron Rodgers is getting up there in age, so you can kind of understand. But with the Wentz situation, it's like, what are you doing? I mean, what does that say about your starter? That says you don't trust him somehow. And I don't trust Carson Wentz myself because the guy's always getting hurt.
That's exactly right.
Now, like you said, all of a sudden you start losing a few games, and they're going to be calling for the kid to come in.
So we'll see. I think a lot of Carson Wentz, what happens with him down the road, depends upon this football game here.
Yep.
And if San Francisco steps up and delivers the goods in this football game, it'll tell me that they're a very well-coached football team. Kyle Shanahan will get an extra kudo for doing just that. Not letting down after those back-to-back East Coast wins. So this is a football game that's going to tell us a lot about both teams moving forward, depending upon the result on Sunday.
Interesting. This almost applied, though. Keep this in mind, that Kyle Shanahan, if the Eagles would have lost the game, and it was almost like the Eagles lost, but Kyle Shanahan, 0-9 against the spread at home off a non-division opponent. Taking on an opponent off a straight-up loss. So 0-9, but Eagles tied, so that didn't apply. But I actually like the Eagles to cover this game. The 0-15, straight up, though, I'll stay away from the upset, but I'll take the points in that one.
Well, I can keep that trend at 0-9, Greg, by rewording it and just saying versus an opponent that did not win its last game.
Okay? Yeah, there you go. I like it.
You go.
Okay. All right, Monday night, Green Bay and Atlanta. Green Bay's a 7.5-point favorite. That 7 number with that Atlanta defense, you're thinking, and Green Bay off to a 3-0 start, 3-0 straight up and against the spread, awfully enticing, especially when Dan Quinn is 1-8 against the spread as a dog following a straight-up favored loss. And Green Bay 7-3 against the spread at home under LaFleur so far. They have the bye week next week. Keep that in mind. That's the Packers. Atlanta. I don't even know what to say. I had my best week of the year last week, and my only loss Cincinnati didn't win the money line, but that was a tie for me. I had Carolina and the Bengals to win outright. I had the Patriots to cover. I had Seattle to cover, and my only loss was Atlanta. But the problem was I was betting against Mitch Trubisky. I was not betting against them bringing Nick Foles in the game. So now that Nick Foles is playing and he's taking on Indianapolis, and Atlanta doesn't have to worry about him, they got to worry about Aaron Rodgers. And their defense, they're just not anywhere near as good as they used to be. And that's a big, especially the secondary. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to have a field day unless Green Bay, after the primetime win, and they're at home, and they're playing a winless team, unless they just have one of those games where they're just kind of running through the motions, maybe they'll pick it up in the second half if they're in trouble. And who knows? Atlanta likes to blow leads. But other than that, I don't know how you could take Atlanta.
Well, in Green Bay, okay, we'll start this off at the top. They are another one of these 3-0 undefeated teams at home. They are also an undefeated team on Monday Night Football at home, which is powerful. Those teams are 20-3 straight up and 19-4 against the spread.
Okay.
So, the combination of those two angles clearly side you to the Green Bay Packers here. My concerns are that Green Bay has averaged almost 41 points a game to start the football season here. That's coming back to the norm here. They also, for the first time this year, were outstatted in a game in their win last week. That's never good. I call that a chink in the armor where you don't see that, but it's always an indicator to me that, something's not 100% like everybody thinks it is. That's there.
Yeah, their defense is they got 2 pass rushers, and that's pretty much it.
You talking about Green Bay?
Green Bay, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Kenny Clark's a nice player. They got a couple other nice players. Don't get me wrong, but what makes their defense, a winning team defense is their pass rushers, led by Ladarius Smith. But other than that, they got a lot of holes on defense.
They do, and that's one of the reasons why they're probably not going to make the Super Bowl again this year, because we find teams that are defenseless and ending up not following that path, that yellow brick road to the Super Bowl. Now the Atlanta Falcons, if you're putting them under the microscope, and you're saying that this team needs to report immediately to a psychiatrist after the way they've lost their last 2 football games.
Yeah.
They've lost 16 points back-to-back weeks. My goodness. How can Dan Quinn possibly get this football team thinking that they can be a competitive football team? They struggled in games against the NFC North. They're just 2-7 the last 9 games to the number doing just that. So it becomes difficult making a case to back a football team whose mind is not 100% right coming into this football contest. There's a lot of value here to Atlanta because of what's happened and what hasn't happened. But I got to throw the value out the window here in this case because of the 3-0 home team and because of the undefeated host on Monday Night Football. I'm on the Green Bay Packers once again this week.
All right, some quick trends before we say good day for another week. Minnesota just 3-8-1 against the spread as a road dog, including 0-1 this year. A battle of winless teams. Houston's a 5-point favorite. I think I liked a little bit more what I saw from Minnesota than Houston last week. And Minnesota's a 2-1 money line play. That intrigues me, where I might take Minnesota in the money line.
I like Minnesota. I'm a big Mike Zimmer fan, and he needs this game like blood here as well. I think it's a real nice spot for them in this contest. Dalvin Cook came alive last week, and Houston is going to ask themselves, why did we make that trade? Explain it to us, Bill O'Brien. Why did we trade DeAndre Hopkins away? I mean, could he have not helped us this football season here? There's no question about that. And Kirk Cousins, whenever he's played well, he's done it when his team is coming off consecutive losses. He's 7-1 straight up and 8-0 against the spread. I think they go into Houston and pull the rug out of Texans.
Okay.
Yes.
Here are a couple of bad trends. Chargers, Tampa Bay. Chargers are 1-6 against the spread before Monday night games, but Tampa Bay 0-8-1 against the spread before Thursday night games. Again, but keep in mind Tom Brady wasn't with the Bucs, and Tom Brady has a really good October record, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Supported largely by Bill Belichick.
Yeah, that's true. But Bruce Arians ain't bad himself.
Yeah, he's not. No, and the New England Patriots. Okay. What I don't like about Tampa Bay is right now, I don't think they're as good as their record indicates right now, and Tom Brady is still not performing.
Well, they're not playing anybody.
No, they're not. And the Chargers' numbers are a lot better than their record indicates here so far. I would have liked the Chargers in this football game pretty well had this been a 4 o'clock Eastern start. I don't like having to take them on a short 10 a.m. body clock start going into Tampa here. But Tampa has a game on Thursday coming up next. And the reason I'm calling that out is the fact that the last 7 times they've had games on Thursdays, they've gone 0-7 to the spread in the game before. Right.
By the way, Arizona is a road favorite for the first time since Week 8, 2017. So I'd be a little bit wary about that. But they're a better team than Carolina. They're a 3.5-point favorite in that game. Arizona's covered 7 straight off a straight-up favored loss versus a losing team. Carolina has covered 7 straight off of a straight up dog win. So conflicting, well, actually, yeah, good conflicting trends in that one.
Well, what you've still got here is Teddy Bridgewater, the old reliable,
Right.
29 to the spread as a starting quarterback in the league. And Carolina's also taken the money down 4 times in a row in this series. I think Arizona could be a little bit disappointed off that loss last week and now asked to lay points on the road, which is really not in their wheelhouse. I think Carolina's the right side in this football game.
Giants 11-3 against the spread. Last 14 as a road dog. Covered the Chicago road game. Rams have covered 9 straight versus teams with winning percentages of less than 3%. They're 1-0 this year as well. So those are conflicting trends there. Big number, though, 13.
It's a huge number. And the Rams have never played well at home coming off back-to-back road games. Just 1-8 to the number doing just that. The thing I like about the Rams is not this role particularly, but they are secretly one of the best teams in the National Football League in head-to-head games on the field. They've won the stats in 16 of their last 19 games.
Wow.
They're only 11-8 for that showing, but that tells you that they're not being outcoached or outplayed on the football field, and that usually comes around and turns in their favor here. I'm going to like the Rams. Are going to be ordering up a lot this year when they dress up as underdogs. I just can't lay this big lumber here this Sunday.
Yeah, and by the way, the Rams, McVay should teach Roman a thing or two because they were big. They were down huge against Buffalo. He didn't just go throw. Stuck with the running game. That gave Goff an opportunity to not get killed on passing downs, which would be every down if you're Mark Roman making calls. That just shows you that, Sean McVay is the head coach and Greg Roman's an offensive coordinator. All right, so playbook.com, Mark. That's where you got to go for everything. Emails, daily emails, the coffee cup emails, the weekly newsletters, and, of course, the playbook.com magazine.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy the coffee club every morning, Greg. There's a lot of good insight into that, not only just in football, but all sports going on. That's all part of an inclusive with the Playbook subscription newsletter. Check it out all online at playbook.com.
Take care, Mark. Week 5 next week. See you in October.
Have a great week, Greg. Be good.